Hi everyone, I hope you guys are all having a great day. Today I'm going to talk about a few books that I'm currently reading and then talk a little bit about TBRs. So for books that I am currently reading, one of the goals that I've set for myself is to read one nonfiction book a month, and the book that I am currently reading to achieve that goal is Evicted by Matthew Desmond. This book was the book chosen as a read-along by Robert from Barter Hordes, and I'm a couple weeks behind, but it just didn't get here in time for me to read it along with him. It was coming from like a library in Sitka, so apparently it takes 3 weeks to get here. So, so far, I'm not going to say I'm enjoying it, but it's interesting, and I'm glad I'm reading it. It is a book that takes a look at poverty in inner cities and how that is related to rent and landlords and things of that nature. I'll get into my thoughts on it when I do a quick review of it, but for right now I'll just say I'm glad I'm reading it, but I don't think that using the word enjoyed is correct. I wouldn't say that I'm enjoying it because it's sad. The second book that I am sort of currently reading is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. This is on the list of a read-along by Ange, and I can't remember what her YouTube channel is at this moment, but I will link her channel down below. She has a Goodreads group, and they are doing this for a read-along. And then the last book that I am currently reading is Robin Hobb's Royal Assassin. This is the second book in the Farseer trilogy, which is sort of a high fantasy, it's just a high fantasy novel about an assassin. And the first book was fantastic, so I was very happy to pick this one up. And if you are interested in learning a little bit more about this fantasy series, I would definitely recommend Jess from Insert Literary Pun here. She did a video, I think this week or last week, that talks about 3 of the trilogies that are in this world, and she talks about these books. She did just an excellent job of talking about them, as she always does, so I will link her video down below if you're interested. So those are the 3 books that I'm currently reading. I'm probably going to finish the Robin Hobb book today. I don't have that much more. But whenever I finish a book, I get a little frustrated because I don't know what to read next. And I know that I've limited myself to not really buying more books. And I've cheated a lot with that because I say buying a book, but I don't buy a lot of books with my own money. I'm gifted many books, and I'm given gift cards for like my birthday. I brought a couple books with gift cards, and then David and I use Amazon, and we always have Amazon points to use, so we tend to use those on books. So I realize that I've cheated quite a bit, which means that I have many books in my household that I haven't read yet, and I have way too many books. And I know that this is not about like getting my TBR down to 0, but for me it is that I do have a goal of reading the books that are on my shelf. And the problem I have with that is that I'm a very moody reader. I only want to read what I'm in the mood for, and if I pick up a book that I'm not in the mood for, I might end up not liking it for no particular reason. And I also am hesitant to pick up every one of the books on this list for one reason or another. So what I've decided to do is I have a stack of 12 books here, and if I read 2 of them a month, that will get me to the end of the year. I typically, so far this year, I've read 4 books every month. So if I choose 2 from the stack of books that I really want to read but get intimidated by, I think that gives me some wiggle room. I can still be a moody reader and read books that I'm in the mood for, and then also include these books in my reading. So I've numbered them from 1 to 12, and I'm going to put them in a random number generator and try to read 2 of them every month, and I'll let you know which ones those are. But first I'm going to share the books. So number 1 on the list is Thomas Hardy's The Mayor of Casterbridge. I've decided I wanted to try reading Thomas Hardy, and this was recommended to me as one of the books that I might be interested in starting with. Number 2 is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Maria Remarque. I really like this spine here. Number 3 is Angela's Ashes. Number 4 is Home by Toni Morrison. Number 5 is The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. Number 6 is Flotsam by Eric Maria Remarque. This is by the same author as All Quiet on the Western Front, but it's about sort of World War II. This number 7 is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I don't know if I said his name right, sorry. I read The Remains of the Day probably 5 or 6 years ago, and it was beautiful. So sad and heartbreaking and wonderfully written. And it was so good that I'm afraid to read this book. I'm afraid that I won't love it as much, and that would just disappoint me. So I've been avoiding it. I've picked it up in Barnes & Noble every time I've gone in probably, and I still haven't bought it once in 5 years. And I finally, a couple of weeks ago, I decided to order it. And so it's finally going to be read this year. Number 8 is My Antonia. Number 9 is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Number 10 is Galloway Bay. This is historical fiction that I was actually given last week by my father-in-law when we went home to New York to visit. He picked this out for me because he knows that I like historical fiction, and it just looks really, really interesting. It's about an Irish family that immigrates to the United States and the struggles that they have there. So I'm very excited to read this one. I think it looks really, I already said this, but I think it looks really great. Number 11 is Falls the Shadow by Sharon K. Penman. This one is the second book in a historical fiction trilogy about Welsh princes in the 13th century, and so there's all kinds of goodness in there. I think reading about Wales is interesting because it's not something that I read very often. However, I thought the first book in this series was just okay. I thought it was well written, and I really loved the research that she put into it, especially because I think she really gets into what it means, like identity and nationality for this time period and how that was developing and changing in England and Wales and France. But I didn't like her characterization of some of the historical figures. However, that said, I'm still going to give this one a try. And then number 12 is Alaska by James Michener. This is just a sweeping historical fiction of Alaska. And it's massive, which is why I haven't read it yet. So all of these books are something that I've been wanting to read for a while but are intimidating to me, and they're going to get read this year. So that's that. And so as I said, I'm going to put these in a random number generator, and I did that a few moments ago. And it told me book number 9, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And actually I'm pretty excited about that because I really want to read this one, and I was nervous that I would never get to it. So it's happening in June. I decided to just pick one for June because it's already halfway over. Do you believe that, guys? June is halfway over. So that is what's happening. So I'm going to add this to my books that I try to read this month. Which sort of leads me to some questions for you guys. How do you choose what books you are reading? I know that as many of you are booktubers, do you do TBR lists? And if you do, link it down below, I'd love to watch it. Or do you just sort of choose, you know, after you finish one book, do you choose what's happening next? How do you do it? And then what do you do when you don't end up liking the book that you've started? How far will you go into a book before you DNF it? Because I guess that's another thing that worries me, is what if I get into one of these classics and I don't love it as much as other people do? Do I want to keep reading it? I know I personally will DNF a book if I'm not enjoying it within the first 75 pages. I know other people have different opinions on that, so let me know what you guys do. And I think that's all I have. I hope you guys all have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.